Oh, I'm excited about the future of the music industry in OKC. Our little scene has just seen a lot of development in the last like 3 years, right before COVID. These music venues have like really established themselves, and we've got big names like the Jones Assembly, Tower Theater, Criterion that are bringing these awesome acts in. And I mean, after COVID, now they kind of had a year to plot and scheme. And the Tower Theater is a good example of that. Like their recent campaigns are really cool. They're being really explosive with what's coming out right now. And the Jones Assembly as well is also doing a big social media push. And I just think that's really cool. And I really look forward to all of the stuff that's being pushed right now by these venues.
Well, I mean, I'm really excited that like a whole bunch of local bands are getting to play Tower Theater. That's just like a really cool, like...
It is a really awesome experience just to play Tower Theater because I don't know. It's, that was my first gig with Johnny Manchild, and I had not played the Tower Theater yet, and it was one of the bigger venues that I've ever played, excluding, you know, outdoor festivals and stuff. Right. It feels different when you're in a closed room with everybody and you can see them really well. And I started the set, you know, just playing out and do an ambient guitar loop. And as I go out there, the crowd started chanting, "Chris, Chris, Chris," and I was freaking out. My very first show, it was
yeah, that's a good way to start.
It was daunting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like the other first shows, which is like, you know, oh, hey guys, I'm like playing over here, and then like 3 people show up and one of them's your mom and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, it's a good...
The first band shows versus like 10 bands later first show.
Yeah. Now you kind of know what you're doing. I was actually at the Don't Tell Dina album release show last night, which great show, great album. It's called Cautious Optimism. Listen to it. It's really good.
I haven't listened to it yet, but Talon had a hand in that, and I'm pretty close friends with him. I need to listen to it. Yeah. And I know a lot of the dudes in Don't Tell Dana too, because I actually recorded a couple of them when they were like really young. I think they were in middle school and I was maybe just starting in high school, and we recorded on Cubase at my friend's house, and it turned out really bad, but we all experimented together back then, and we didn't even know each other. They just kind of wanted to record, and we were like, I think we're offering recording. Yeah. It didn't turn out, but that's how I met some of the guys in Don't Tell Dana.
but that's like, you have to, especially in like middle school and high school, it's like everyone's just kind of like trying stuff. I have this like old ass recording of like one of the first songs, or like the first song I ever like finished. It is awful. Like I still have it. It's on my hard drive, and I just like go back to it and just cringe. But at the same time, it's like, had to start somewhere. And that was like in high school. And it's like, how neat that like I was able to, I think I recorded it in like Audacity at a friend's house. So that's into like one of those like desktop like webcam mics or whatever. Right. Yeah.
I had it was essentially like a 1/4-inch input, so you could plug in a guitar cable, and then the other end was a USB input into the computer. And it was just a cable. There was no interface at all. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, especially like now knowing like, oh wow, what's a preamp, you know? But anyways, like I was talking to some people about how like, yeah, the music scene, the people in the music scene are really supportive about the music scene. But then like, and this is a topic that keeps coming up on the podcast, is like, how do we get non-musicians to understand that there's a music scene
and be as supportive as the musicians are with the other musicians, even though they may not be a musician themselves? There are so many people in the music scene that I feel like enjoy it the same way we do, but don't understand how they can make a difference and be more involved.
Yeah. And there's a lot of just like friends, like people's friends that like, oh, I don't do any music, but like I know the guys in this band, and so like I go out to their shows and it's really cool. And it's like, all right, let's take that and like take it a step further and be like, I don't know anything about music, but I like going to shows and seeing local bands, and just turning it into that.
Make it a thing, less of a thing that you do occasionally, and more of a thing that is like set, and there's a group of people that all agree, yes, we're set, and we should commit to doing these things.
Yeah, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe this is, and I don't go to bars very much, but like in some sense in the back of my mind, I feel like when people like go up to the door and it's like, hey, cover charge. And I'm like, oh, there's a band playing? Never mind. Let's go to a different bar. Yeah. And it's like, why not? Like, this is part of the experience of you going out is seeing live music and local bands. And I mean, yeah, not every local band is like the greatest, but like if you get involved a little bit and check out like what's in the scene, you might be able to know. It's like, oh crap, like I've heard these people's songs on Spotify and like they're really cool and I do want to see them live.
And I can support them by paying the cover charges. Like normalize just without thinking supporting your local artists.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
And then I think the other thing is like, I don't know, like being, I guess it's hard to keep playing the same venues over and over again. Like there's,
even if it's like some of the really nice ones, once you play there, like you've played there 5 times, it's like, man, how do I make this fresh?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just for you, but for the audience as well.
Yeah. And it like cool, maybe, I don't know, there's a weird line too, because there's like the lifers who like play every week or something.
Right.
And they're
it's their job.
Yeah, it's their job and they're doing it every night and they do like mostly covers and stuff like that. And it's like, that's a separate kind of mentality from like what we do as original music musicians.
Right. Like the band Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastards hasn't played in a year.
Yeah.
Like we did a couple live stream shows, and then we have our album release show coming up on November 5th.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
Like it's because you know we want that album release show to be huge. We want everybody needs to come to it, and there's people driving from out of state, out of country to come and see us play there. And it's just I totally forgot where we were coming from with that.
Right.
But,
well, it's like we don't just play shows to play shows.
We don't play shows for the money. We play shows for the music, kind of, because we want that to be impactful.
Yeah.
We're not playing because we need to pay our bills every weekend. It's like that's a different kind of supporting the lifers.
Yeah.
The people that play every weekend at, you know, that one bar. Yeah. And they play covers and they do it really well. Yeah. Definitely go support them. But then there's also the people who only have like one show a year and they're releasing an album, and please come to that because because no offense to the lifers and the weekenders, but that weekend, come to that.
yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing too. It's like, I don't know, there's not enough festivals and stuff for like us to, and like festivals don't really pay anyway, so
festivals are just a good time.
Right, yeah. But it's like, thanks for the exposure, I guess.
Yeah.
People die of exposure. But like I don't know, it's a weird thing because like, all right, and for me too, like, all right, I've seen you guys play this set 5 times because it's like, yeah, we're a band and we play shows because we like have to, I guess. Like, why do we play shows?
This is the music that we're trying to kind of promote. This is the album that we want everybody to hear. Sorry you had to hear it in the same order more than one time.
Yeah, well.
because we played, 2 shows one weekend to another, and we couldn't fit a practice and do a whole new set.
Right. But it's like, I don't know. It's weird for the consumer as well, because it's like, yeah, I love this band. It's like, all right, well, we're playing this venue, this venue, this venue, this venue, the same like 5 venues that we always play. And we're playing it like, every other week for the next 3 months. And it's like, yeah, I want to support you, but like, this is just it.
I'll keep it fresh. I'll spit a water bottle out in the crowd like the big bands. I'll bite the head off a bat. No, well, that's animal cruelty. I won't do that. Rubber bat. Rubber ducky?
Sure.
Bite the head off of it. Keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Very entertaining.
Opaque, that jazz group. I was gonna say like quartet, but now it's like a big ass group. They have a song called Rubber Ducky.
Rubber ducky.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's hard that like every band that you know and love was once a local band. They just eventually got to the point to where they started not playing in their own city.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you guys were about to.
Oh man, that was rough. We had just started our tour and we were packing up the van to leave Oklahoma City. And everyone was in it, and we're on social media and we're like, man, this outbreak is getting pretty bad. Oh yeah, it's in the US now. Day 2. Guys, this is not good. And I think we were in Chicago when we were talking about cutting the tour early. And then the day that we left Chicago, it hit Chicago super bad. We're like, is it following us? It sucked. We had to cut our tour like 6 shows early, and a lot of crazy stuff started falling apart on that tour. The shows that we did play were really, really good. Yeah. We got to play in a studio in Chicago, so it wasn't a venue. It was packed. Very, very fun. And there was a part where Johnny was like gonna throw out the set list, and this dude jumped over another dude and like landed on top of him, catching it. It was like a basketball scenario where he's going for the rebound. He just flipped over the other guy, and the guy like caught him and the set list. It was hilarious.
That's a cartoonish image in my head.
Probably against fire code how many people were in there, but it was a great time.
Well, they'll never know. Even though we're recording this
That's
and
fine.
putting it out publicly. But I don't know, like...
There was another venue that we were supposed to go to on that tour, and it burnt down. That tour was wild. So we really look forward to the next tour that's going to go very well, and there will be no pandemics or epidemics or any demics.
Yeah, we're vaccinated. It's all good. We've passed the decade mark, so like the pandemic is over. You know, wait for the next 10 years for the next pandemic. Unless, you know, bioterrorism, you know.
COVID-20.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, it would be COVID-21 at this point.
Oh, that's right. We already did have a meeting.
Yeah, unless it started last year and we just didn't. There's also, like, the new variants and stuff like that, but, you know. There's nothing to be scared about, right? We're all good now. We can just not wear masks in public and
I mean...
be...
Not to scare anybody, but there was a small numbers jump for specifically Oklahoma. Yeah. Like 2 days ago or something like that.
Right. Well, it's like, it's not, you can't like prove to anyone that you're vaccinated or whatever. But at the same time, it's like,
just don't stop washing your hands though. That's that's something we should all continue doing.
Right. And I mean, I guess if you don't believe in it and you get it, maybe you will believe in it.
Probably.
Hopefully not die, but like, you know, someone's got to learn a lesson somehow.
I'm fine.
It's got dark.
I'm fine. This is nothing.
Anyways, I guess we also wanted to talk a little bit about like the creative process. I think that was one of the things. So like, what is your creative process? And I guess if you're still writing songs for you, is there a difference between the like McNug stuff versus like the Chris Lashley stuff?
Absolutely. There's like 3 writing processes that I have adopted through my experience as a musician with bands, writing solo, and then working on more produced music or electronic music or pop. Yeah. So with band, being in a band is... You really have to feel the room. You have to feel out, you know, especially when you have a band with like 7 people. It's very different than if you're in a band with like 3 people, especially on guitar. Because if you're in a band with 3 people on guitar, you've got a lot of space to fill. Yeah. And you're going to need to play a lot more and just in general be a lot more present in the mix because you're probably the melody and like decent chunk of the rhythm.
Yeah.
Versus if you're playing in like a 7-piece band with horns, you can't step on the horns. There's a lot of mid-range muddling that can happen for like a low horn part and a guitar part if you end up not playing unison. So sometimes it's just better to not play at all in a 7-piece band, especially on a guitar. Especially if it's like heavier music, like Johnny Manchild can get sometimes. You don't always need to play. The piano and the horns can always take that up. So it's a lot of feeling the room with the band.
Yeah.
And asking questions, especially to the person maybe who wrote the song. Yeah. To make sure that you're fitting the vibe and you're not just showing off or you're being distasteful in any way. So be tasteful, be tactful. And always listen and ask questions.
Yeah,
and
serve the song.
Yes, be open and serve the song. Then solo, I just sit down with a guitar, and I usually just start by just playing around with finger picking. Mm-hmm. That's typically how writing some of my solo songs go. Other times I will actually just have like a song, like you wake up and you have like lyrics and a melody in your head, and it came straight from your dream, and you're like, okay, now I have to find the chords that I can't remember from my dream. So sometimes you just have a song fully in your head and you're just trying your best not to get in the way of yourself and let that come out.
I always refer to that part of the creative process as like the way I think it was Michelangelo did. It was just like, was it Michelangelo? Damn it.
One of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, chiseling away at the marble that isn't the statue. And so you know what the song is and you know what it wants to be. And so you're trying to just let it out rather than like impose yourself upon it. I think of the SpongeBob episode where like
Dink.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
Right. And then Squidward like adds his like weird like nose, and it's like, now it's perfect. And it's like, yeah, when you add that weird nose, you're like, oh, I'm getting in the way of the song, aren't I?
Thinking about making it more, you're thinking too hard. You're making it too you. You're making it more about your skills and your craft and less about just getting out what was in your head can sometimes be more pure and a little bit more enjoyable and honest. Honest music is always more accepted, in my opinion. Yeah.
Do you also like, for your own stuff, do you have like a process thing whenever, because my EP that I put out last is like I don't think any of them were like incidental, like, ooh, this just came out of me. Like all of them were like commissioned or like projects for like a class or something.
Anything that I've released was more like that. Yeah. All of my solo stuff that I've written on guitar and just sing, all of that honest music that I enjoy personally, I have not released. If people got to see me perform it live, that's the only time. I mean, I have some recordings, but they're not out. I don't have I'm not registered independently for a PRO or anything. I've gotten really in my head about releasing that stuff correctly. And so I haven't released it at all. Yeah. And it's not even about the recording process. It's about the publishing side and making sure that it's all released this way and that's all on these streaming services that I want it to be on. And because of that, I got in my own way.
Yeah, that's the reason why like I'm working on a singer-songwriter / alternative rock album. Like the two things that I have on Spotify right now are all instrumental. And like I'm a singer. I write songs with words, but like there's nothing available for anyone to hear. And so it's like kind of the motivator that inspired me to release the EP at all was like, if you're not putting out music, then you don't make music, right? As far as anyone's concerned. And that was the motivator for me to be like, all right, well, I have this music, I'm going to put it out. And try this marketing experiment. But like, yeah, I don't think many people that, I don't listen to this podcast, obviously, but like people that know of me that I make music, I don't think they know that I sing. Right. And that's my main instrument.
I mean, I heard you sing on your last ambient thing that you were doing. You were doing some nice ahs.
Yeah.
But I know what
that
you
always
mean.
ends up
I know
being
what
odds.
you mean. You mean like lyrics that you write and you genuinely sing melodies that you've written.
And like this album has taken me so long to like prepare, and like I'm still working on it and still producing it, but like yeah, being like really sacred about like, oh, these are special songs and I gotta like make sure that this, because it's me, you know.
Try not to get in your own way.
Yeah.
I do it. And it helps when you have, especially with the solo stuff, someone to help move you along, to help work with you, an engineer, a manager, maybe like just a friend who's really into it. Somebody to say, no, that was good. You should keep that one.
Yeah, well, I mean the role of producer, not in the like electronic arranger sort of point of view, but like the more like, I don't know, classic point of view of a producer, of like the Rick Rubin that just like goes in and is like, try it this way.
Yes, try it this way. That was good. Let's move on to the next one because I think we got it. And you're like, was it? But he would know.
Yeah, because he's fucking Rick Rubin.
Exactly. So it's I've been doing a lot less of the solo singer-songwriter stuff, and I have been just pumping out the third prosy, which would be like I'm doing lo-fi hip-hop stuff, more like producing it on a computer type thing, although I produce it on monomes. I do it with Dallas using like a little Raspberry Pi computer that I built and this really weird box of buttons and knobs called the monome. And they're really pretty looking, and they blink and bloop, and they don't do anything by themselves until you plug them into a computer, because they're not a MIDI controller per se, but they do communicate on a very basic level with computers, and you can tell them exactly what you want them to do.
Out of curiosity, what kind of data does it send?
OSC.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's very open protocol for you to define whatever you want. It doesn't just have to talk to, MIDI. It can talk Java. You can translate it in all of these different programming languages to do like whatever you want it to do. If you wanted it to be a typing keyboard, you'd have to write the program to do that.
But it can't.
Yes, exactly. If you wanted it to control lights, not over MIDI, I don't know, they could do that. You just got to write the program. Yeah. So I'm not smart. I don't write the programs. I just use other people's written programs, and I like to work with the script and program writers to help troubleshoot bugs and stuff. That's really fun and entertaining for me. Yeah. So there's this monome community, this forum online, and it's a very, very friendly, active community with some of the smartest people you could meet on the internet. I have no idea what they're talking about, actually 60% of the time. And I'm just looking for these keywords that mean, here's a new script for you to try.
Yeah. What's the URL? Isn't it just like LLLLL? Like,
I think it's 8ls.co.
Yeah.
Now I have to check, because I know if I'm wrong, it gives you a weird website. So I have to check.
But this thing, it's like, yeah, it's like a forum and it's a community. Like I went in there a long time ago to like see what's up, and I'm like, oh, I'm not advanced enough for this yet.
Yes. 8 lowercase l's.co.
Yeah, and if you want to get in there and understand the monome stuff, but it's not even exclusive to monome stuff. It's also
a lot of modular
electronic production stuff.
There's a lot of modular builds, a lot of like just weird new hardware that exists for music making and weird sounds, weird new softwares. There's all sorts of stuff on there, and it's really, really broad and really dense, but totally worth finding your niche in that little community.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, what it is for you is that like, instead of like, you don't have to be a programmer to be able to get into this stuff, and you can have a community with people, and it's like, oh, someone's a programmer, but they may not be able to use their program at the utmost ability that it can. And so like, hey, here, it's the same with like video games. Like there's developers.
A proficiency.
Yeah, there are developers, but then it's like, hey, we need someone to like test it and like see if it's good, and we need, pro players to like break it to see like what we can fix with it as well.
I put myself in that position. That's a little bit glorifying to what I do. I honestly feel more annoying to the script writers, but that's how it feels to me is like, yes, like I'm testing a new video game. But I feel like to them, it's like, man, this guy messaged me again about this thing not being in time.
Yeah.
So that's Monome. That's what I use to make my lo-fi hip-hop stuff.
Yeah.
And that process, though, is always different than being in a band or writing solo, because I almost always start with drums. And I start with like a vibe, like a tonality to the drums or a tonality to like a starting sound that kind of paves the way for the rest of the song. Like, does this song feel sad? Is this song rainy? And you put that vibe into the drums, like before even creating the sad chords. Yeah. So it just has a vibe to start off with, and that's completely different than how I write for the other two ways. Yeah.
And the technology itself kind of informs how you're going to approach it. Yeah. Because of the limitations or the barriers that you're going to run into, it has you creatively approach and like problem solve in a way that if you just had a guitar, you would approach differently.
Because with electronic music, and especially this kind of electronic music, there's this big decision of asynchronicity, or is it going to be on beat? And how exactly is it going to be on beat? Especially for lo-fi hip-hop. Because the beat's kind of supposed to be a little messed up. Yeah. It just should have like a push-pull feel to it. And with Monome stuff specifically, it can be sort of weird to work with the clock/click. Yeah. Because on my DIY little computer that I made, there's no output for a click. Yeah. If you spend good money on the actual Monome Norns, which is gorgeous and this beautiful like brushed aluminum case and a nice screen, and it has its own battery like built in and stuff. It has a monitor output, so you can actually like you could make a click track and it'll come out of the monitor output and it's all separate and it won't be recorded. But on mine, I just have a little 1/8" output, just like aux cord, and that's all you get for the output. And I kind of like that limitation. It makes me think harder.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I was talking to a different friend about this, how like I call it the sandbox problem. Like if you just have access to like everything and anything, you like sit down, it's like, I'm going to make something.
And you're like, oh God, what do I make?
What do I do? But whenever you have like, all right, well, I'm going to start with drums because that's like what this thing is built for. So, okay, cool. I can do that. All right. What else can I add to it with these limitations? And so having creative limitations can help you be more creative rather than like, oh, cool, the world is your oyster. It's like, well, I don't want to anymore.
Especially with Monome, because when you get one of these things for the first time, you're like, oh, so many possibilities, and your mind's racing. You get really excited. And you're like, what do I do though? Yeah. And you start, you try one app or one script, and you're like, this isn't for me. But it's really cool, but it's not the sound that I'm looking for. And then you're like, okay, well, which one is? Oh my God, there's like 400 options. Yeah. And so you're looking and trying all these different scripts that sound totally different and finding what's right for you and then limiting yourself. Because there are, even within just one script, there are so many endless possibilities of what you can do with this little Monome gear in this computer. Yeah. So finding the best way to accomplish what you need in that moment. The best way to do that is by heavily limiting yourself, in my opinion, because you can be doing drums and be like, oh, this sounds cool, but I want this effect from this other script. And then you kind of get derailed. You go to the other script, you add the effect. Maybe you go back and you're like, it's not, I messed it up. So limiting yourself is an important process in making that sort of pop, lo-fi, hip-hop, normal hip-hop, trap. Limiting yourself can yield really nice creative results.
Yeah. But it's also like really specific, and like only that pathway will get you that, which is what is more, I don't know. It's like, it's more interesting in that way because like you can only make it in this way. If you want that sound, you have to like follow this train in a way.
Like sampling drums, like old hip hop style, speeding up the recording and then recording it onto whatever sampler you're going to be using, and then slowing it back down in your sampler after it's / while it's being downsampled, has a really interesting and very specific effect on drums that makes them really punchy and 90s sounding. And that's something that I've found I really like in my lo-fi hip-hop music, and it's a very specific process to get it there. And it's especially difficult whenever you're not trying to like steal drum sounds from some other record, so you like record a drum loop and then do that process. It is a very specific vibe, and like you're saying, only that can yield that.
R.I.P. De La Soul's early stuff.
I don't listen to enough hip hop.
Right. Well, I mean,
I've just been making it. It makes me feel bad.
No, I mean, De La Soul did that, and then all the record companies went after them for like sampling all the different stuff.
Oh, one of the original sampling cases.
Yeah, they were one of the original ones, and they got slammed hard.
Those darn sample snitches.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's like, oh, if you take even like a snare from like an existing record, people will go after you. So it's like, all right, well, guess everyone's using Splice now.
I've started for some of my percussion just walking around my house and hitting like my bed, that's a kick drum. Hitting my couch, that's a kick drum.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just doing more found percussion because I'm like, I want to actually release these songs, please.
Yeah. Well, on the on my last live stream, I did like only things that I recorded in. And so instead of using like MIDI instruments or anything like that, I did the drums with my mouth, and I just put it into a drum rack and stuff. And
I think it's more fun.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely a challenge.
It
was definitely a challenge, and like trying to get certain sounds out of things that you just put into it rather than...
I just want to be Andrew Wong. How do you do that? How do you like record a tire and it's like suddenly a melody? It's crazy.
Yeah,
to be able to filter and stuff like that, and
editing is part of the magic too.
Right, but it's so specific, like you were saying. It's a very specific process to make, this sound that is not a drum sound like a drum sound.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of different ways to do it, and which specific processes you take really determines like the vibe of the sound, the vibe of the drums.
Right,
your beatboxing can either be like distorted, like grungy beatboxing, or you can like scoop it out and try to clean it up and make it like softer almost, and just really bring out those drum tones and EQ them out. And then maybe you have something that sounds more like drums and less like beatboxing versus having like really dirty beatboxing as your drums.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just did like a into the mic, and then I like filtered it and like added distortion and like pitched it down a little bit, and like, it's yeah, you can take a sound and then like fuck with it and have it make more interesting sounds.
I really like doing that on the mono stuff specifically. There's an app called Timber that is sort of just like drum rack. And with included EQ and filtering options and an LFO that you can attach to like pitch and really, really weird stuff like that. And there's a great option to degrade quality by sample rate and bit depth reduction. It's fantastic because it's like, I think the filter is after the reduction, so you can filter out the like kind of crazy you get whenever you downsample something, and you just end up with that and it's all grody and goes whenever you hear that low end fade out with a downsampled thing, has this like weird high end that goes with the low end.
Yeah. There's a plugin called Lossy by this company Guitarist, and it's not a downsampler. It emulates the sound of like MP3s, of like how much more like audio, like compression and like the warbly stuff that it does to the high end. And like that plugin's been on my wish list for a while, but it's like, how interesting that it's not a downsampler, it's a
like audio truncator slash file converter.
Yeah, but it's like that is a sound that like, if you listen to like, man, I still have recordings. I still have like MP3s from like LimeWire days.
How does your computer survive through that?
Well, it's like, I mean, I was like a wizard in LimeWire because like I would pull up Wikipedia and like make sure the track links were correct and like make sure that everything was in the right order. I would get like album art.
Theft.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was really devoted, but like, you know, I was a broke teenager. I'm not going to pay for music. Jeez.
I used LimeWire too. Right. I ruined my parents' computer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We didn't like, again, I have two brothers, but like we were surprisingly like good at it. And so there were less viruses than you would expect from LimeWire. But there were definitely some files downloaded that were not the track that they said. And that was a weird thing too, because I remember whenever like I think it was Narrow Stairs by Death God for Cutie came out, I had like, there were like 2 or 3 tracks on there that like were not it. And I was like, why is this so different and like weird and like distorted? And because it wasn't that. But like I like vaguely remember, I don't have it anymore, but like, yeah, that's kind of the weird stuff that you might get through the internet as well, is like fake, this is like a new Linkin Park track, and it's actually like, you know, some guy who like is trying to pimp his own music and has it off his Linkin Park or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have Narrow Stairs on vinyl. Do you have a vinyl player or any vinyl records? I don't. Man, vinyl got really weird after COVID. Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastards did a whole pre-sale campaign to raise money because we really wanted to press vinyl for this new album. And the pre-sale campaign went awesome. We raised all the money that we needed to. And we were talking to, pressing companies about it in, I think it was like February. Mm-hmm. And we were getting estimated times for printing. And we were like, cool, awesome. Little did we know this was just, I guess, mid-COVID, I believe. And the companies were shut down pretty much, but they were still taking in orders and stuff, but they weren't pressing anything. They were all working from home. Mm-hmm. And right after COVID ended, they got flooded by the big companies, by Rumors, Fleetwood Mac, by all these records, these bigger records that had a demand that suddenly now they can get that filled. Mm-hmm. No pressing places have any availability until next year. Yeah. So like we were really excited to, have our vinyl record at our album release, and now it's looking like we aren't even going to be able to get the guys that paid in for the pre-sale. We were expecting to have that to them maybe like a month early or right on the date that the album release came out. Yeah. And now they're going to wait till February 2022. It sucks. We're really looking at like other options. We're calling all the pressing companies right now. We're all in sort of like a panic.
I did look into it for Bloom, my first album, and like it is like, if you do like 500 versus like 10, like it is better to have like a bulk. But like there are companies that do like very limited run. Like you can get like 50.
These are the people that we're talking to. So there's vinyl pressing companies who will make you 500 copies that are exactly the same. And then there's lathe cut records that will do like, they'll do a run of 50. Mm-hmm. And the reason why lathe cut records don't like to do giant pressings like 500 was because, one, that would take forever cutting each individual record, but two, lathe cut records sound a little bit better. They have a little bit wider of a stereo image, although it's not necessarily noticeable to like I'm got a pretty good ear and I can't really tell the difference between a pressed and a lathe cut record. But
it's all the lies that audiophiles tell themselves to like, it's worth it, okay? Adding another 0 to the price tag was worth it.
There's science that supports it, but lathe cut records, the trade-off is they are more prone to having like a little defect, to having like a skip built into the record, because the cutting process, and the quality control process of that cutting process, it takes longer. What if there was straight up an earthquake, and during your cutting, you're gonna have a big
I
old
would
skip
want to
right
hear
there,
that
right?
though.
Oh, that would be cool. But so there's room for error with lathe cutting, and with pressing, there's kind of not, and you can do it a lot faster. So we're talking to lathe cutting companies, but I mean they'll only do, and we have an hour and 12 minutes of music on this vinyl.
That's a lot. That's a 4 records probably.
It's
like
2. It'll be 2. It'll be
okay.
It'll be a 12-inch double-sided bifold record.
Okay.
Is what we're going for. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do color or not. Originally, we had planned this. We have this awesome design, like pretty much ready to give the pressing company, but they aren't pressing colored vinyls right now because it takes longer to actually make, like, you know, if you want to do like a speckle or a blend, it takes a little bit longer, and they're so slammed with these big orders that they will not take color options right now. Some of them, you know, maybe an awesome vinyl pressing company will hear this and call Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastards and be like, "We got you, fam. We will be able to deliver all those pre-orders, no problem."
One can only dream. Yeah, no, I haven't gotten into vinyl because it will inhale my wallet.
It definitely does. I mean, I got a new record player, and I'm like, sweet, I spent like an absorbent amount of money on my birthday for this new record player, and it's like got a carbon fiber tone arm and all this crap. And I have like 50 records. Go to Guest Room Records. They got an awesome selection, and they have local artists on vinyl too. Hopefully our vinyl record will be available at Guest Room Records. Yeah. And you know, I dropped at least $200, and I didn't get that much music. I just got some of the really good ones that I really wanted and are actually kind of expensive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like I have my list of like my favorite bands, my favorite albums ever. And so it's like as soon as I get a record player, it's going to be like, all right, finish the list. And it's like, all right, Radiohead discography, Tool discography,
Radiohead's was
brand new discography.
Okay, Computer is a good one. In Rainbows.
But I mean like all of it. Like Radiohead's my favorite band, so it's like I just have to.
Those are the two those are must-haves, so I had to go ahead and do those. Those were included in the $200 for sure.
There you go. And that's the thing. It's like, oh, also, this is random, but like I learned about it recently. Do you know about the 0110 theory?
I don't think so.
I feel like it doesn't. I don't know.
Is this a loudness theory? What are we talking about?
It's a Radiohead, like, I don't know, theory, clue, something that like the conclusion is that like, oh, if you like, you can play OK Computer and In Rainbows like
tandem, like
not tandem like simultaneously, but like one track like woven into another. So it's like I think Airbag is the first one in OK Computer, and then you play 15 Step, and then you play, I think it's Subterranean Homesick Alien. This is how much I like Radiohead. But like apparently it's supposed to like, you know, transition nicely into each other.
Cool, like Zipper. The songs zipper into each other. Yeah. That's interesting.
I listened to it in that way, and I was like, I don't know. I know these albums well enough that it just felt like I was going back and forth between the two albums.
Right. I mean, they're mastered differently. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like audiophile style, you would notice something that like separates them.
I guess tonally, like they have similar arcs, but there was definitely like a point later in the album where it was like, OK Computer had like a more upbeat sound, whereas In Rainbows had like more of a toned down sound. So it kind of went like up, down in the tracks. And I was like,
I totally see that.
I don't know about this theory, but it's like people have been talking about it for like, I don't know, since In Rainbows came out.
What was his movie called that he had a hand in? That was so cool when they were like doing
Suspiria?
Yes, they were doing choreography on the slanted wall. That was my favorite part. It was a gorgeous film. I'd watch that again. I need to. I
need to watch all of Paul Thomas Anderson's films as well, the like Johnny Greenwood scores. Because I have a kindred spirit with Johnny Greenwood, because it's like, yeah, he like started in rock world, but he like does a bunch of classical stuff too, and like that's kind of where I'm at. So I relate to him a lot in that way, even if I haven't like listened to his. I have a weird thing of like I don't like listening to scores of things that I haven't seen yet, or like there's a bunch of like video games as well that I have on my like wish list or that I haven't like played yet.
And you want to experience the music with the game. Yeah, totally. I understand.
And so it's like, oh yeah, I love this game soundtrack. And it's like, I will enjoy it once I finish the game.
I feel that. That's how I felt about Hyper Life Drifter. And to separate yourself from that and listen to it differently, I don't know, you like remember that moment. You're like, oh my God, this is the part where I was dying a million times. And then you're like, oh, this is actually a great song. So I shouldn't have been so mad.
Right. Well, not every game soundtrack is that good, but like, and that's a weird thing, is that like, if the soundtrack works well on its own, what does that say about the game or the soundtrack? You know, because sometimes, yeah, there are game soundtracks that are like, all right, it's just kind of backgroundy music, which is fine.
Or
like,
straight up annoying.
Sure.
Some video game soundtracks I would not listen to apart from the video game.
But like, yeah, Disaster Piece is the composer for Hyper Light Drifter. He's one of my like video game music idols.
You told me his awesome story last time about how I didn't know that he had heart disease.
The developer, like the main guy, not the composer.
Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't the composer. That wasn't the composer.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Heart Machine, the game developer that made Hyper Light Drifter, the main guy, I don't remember his name, but like the game director, he actually has a heart condition that like basically the doctors are like, hey, you may not have a long time to live. And so like he's, you know, had to have like surgeries and like medications and stuff like that for his like severe heart condition.
And they built that into the game. And that's the main character's like thing.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind when you told me that, because I played through the entire game and the poor guy, he's in this dystopian future and he's coughing stuff up as like, that's like your cut scene. Like you've made it to a new area and he's like, oh God. And he's hurting. And then, oh my God, Santiago told me that the director of that video game has that condition. And he has a heart condition where he'll like sometimes cough up blood, and it just got me. And now he's infinite in an awesome character that saves the world in his video game world. I just think that's amazing.
Yeah. Did he save the world, or did he just kind of?
I mean,
I guess spoilers, but
he beats the big boss, right? So
yeah, I guess
he did what he could. He lived a very full life in that video game.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on about video games, but like, but that's actually talking about games and music creation.
That's sort of what he achieved. He lives on forever in that video game. That's definitely what I achieved with trying to record and like deliver music straight from the brain to the ears, right? But recorded so it lasts forever.
Yeah, exactly. There's kind of how we were talking about like the different avenues of creation. One reason I'm so interested in video game music is because of the like dynamic aspect of it, that whenever you're playing a game, the music changes with you. Right. And
sometimes it's on the depth of that can get so intense when you have like games like I think Call of Duty did this. They do like surround sound stuff. Like you can hear where like a mortar or a bullet that whizzed by you is coming from. Yeah. That just to establish that like each one of those bullets is an individual item in the game, and each one of those individual items has an audio clip that goes with it, and each one of those audio clips has a location relative to the item. How do you do that? And it goes whizzing by you and you can hear it. What? Mind blown. Yeah. Like I really want to know that process.
Yeah, if you've ever played a game with either surround or headphones, if you have like a third-person camera, you can like spin the camera around you and you can hear all of the sounds spin around you.
Yeah, it turns with your camera, and that's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, and that's just like a clever bit of like collaboration between programmers and audio guys.
And it creates this immersion when you put headphones on and you're playing a video game. And I'm just, if I do that, you're not going to get to talk to me for like 2 hours. I get really, really sucked into video games. My wife hates it. I am 100% sure. And of course, I like yell at my video games too. She hates that. I video game like people like what, like Bedlam, like OU versus OSU. That's how I video game. Like, don't do that. Oh my god, yes.
I heard you have some Smash skills.
I love to play Super Smash Brothers. I've been playing Super Smash Brothers since 64. My half brother, he had like an NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, and I was not into it. I would get mad at those games. The 2D aspect of it really frustrated me, and I was never good at those kind of games. And then Smash came out for 64, and I started beating my half brother, and I was like, this is it. This is my jam. And I played it up to Melee. I wasn't very good at Melee, but I really liked playing it. I played it with my friends all through middle school and high school.
Yeah.
And then Brawl came out, and nobody enjoyed Super Smash Brothers. Nobody wants to trip. Why would you just want to trip around the stage? Like, there's no bananas, and you just fall. But it was actually really cool. You know, Snake and Meta Knight, first time in that video game. And then Super Smash Brothers Ultimate came out for the Switch. Man, I've put more hours into Super Smash Brothers Ultimate than any other video game in my life. Unfortunately. I'm not bad at it. I could probably like play it competitively because I'm that big of a nerd. At work, if I have downtime and I can like listen, I smash like people enjoy sports. I listen to Smash tournaments while I work at work sometimes. And just to find out who wins, and then if something crazy happens, the commentators know it. I'll like go back and watch it. And I mean Donkey Kong.
Okay.
And Ultimate. I'm not bad with a few other characters. Like I love Captain Falcon because he's so hype. Who else do I play? I really like Pyra and Mithra, the latest. Yeah. Well, I guess now we have a new Tekken character. Yeah, that's the newest. So I'm not familiar with that character at all, actually. Like I guess he's like a demon kind of guy, like half demon, and that's news to me. I've seen his character a lot, and I was like, oh, he's real angry. But I like Pyra and Mithra a lot if I need to play somebody faster, because she's really fast and she's really strong. She dies kind of early, but I really like characters with survivability because I just have studied DI in every one of these games. I just like to know how, why did you live from that? I'm a huge Smash nerd, and I play DK. Take me on. My name's McNug online. And then my username for Nintendo Switch is CLASH //
Nice.
Add me. I'll be your friend.
Yeah. Did you ever play Project M?
I did play Project M. I've played Ultimate Smash Nerd. I have played all of the mods. I have played Legacy, Super Smash Brothers Legacy. I was first invited to Smash mods. I was in college, and they were this dude was in the commons room just by himself with his laptop plugged into the TV, and I was like, oh, you're playing Smash. Is that Scott Pilgrim in Smash fighting a Decepticon? And he was in the modder community. Yeah. I really wish I remembered his name and exchanged information with him and stuff, because that was really cool to be introduced to that as a huge Smash nerd. Mm-hmm. And I just walk around the corner and he blew my mind, because I think it was a mod called Infinite. I think it was called Infinite, and it had 120 characters in it, and not all of them were fleshed out. Some of them were just floating blobs of here's a character and his moveset. And then others were here's Scott Pilgrim with his Rickenbacker bass guitar smacking Mario around. That was so cool.
Please don't do that with a Rick, because those are expensive.
Picking up a Rickenbacker overhand will void the warranty.
They're also really nice, and you use them as instruments because they're really nice.
The joke is that anything you do to a Rickenbacker voids the warranty, because if you change the strings, it voids the warranty.
Wow.
Right? Isn't that fun? Fun info. At least that's how it was whenever I worked at Guitar Center back 6 years ago. Good Lord. Am I old yet? I think so. Yeah, I've played Project M. The current downloads I have for Project M and the other modded smashes I haven't worked with my latest update of Windows. So I've got to like re-download and reconfigure them and see how I can get them working again.
So I guess there's a separate like train of thought here where there are, I don't know, spheres of like mind spaces for creatives that lean into like technical side. Like there are like, I don't know if you know Stuart Adams.
That sounds so familiar. Yes, I remember Stuart.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. He's like not a musician. He like makes some music, but he's an engineer.
Yes, a great one.
And
we were paired up on a like project together where we had to just like print like the best, most clean drum sounds that we could get. He did a great job. I love Stuart as an engineer.
Right. And his brain is like technical sound side. Yes. He like music isn't where he is. And like I know that there's like a lot of people like this that like they're audio people and not necessarily music people, and there's like a bridge somewhere in there that it's like the creativity is technical. And for me, like I do have enough technical experience to like know what the heck I'm doing with a microphone and audio signal and stuff like that. I am a good audio engineer as far as I know. But like the level of expertise that comes from like someone who's like an actual audio engineer, I'm like, oh no, I'm just a creative. But like it seems like you are kind of in that space because you are in that like technical side. You like messing with mono, not to the point to where you're just like a pure programmer, but like you like messing with scripts and stuff like that. You like modding stuff. You like, so I guess what is that for you and what draws you into the technical side?
Well, for me, the mono stuff, making that computer type music, that's bridging the gap for me. Yeah. Because, you know, I did a lot of live sound, and with working on mono and stuff, it's kind of like having a console right there doing whatever you tell it to. Yeah. So it's really bridging the gap of there's all these technical options that I can use with this thing. Which ones are correct? Which ones will bring the desired result? Yeah. So I don't know if I favor either one side more than the other, because music came so naturally to me, and audio engineering, I really did feel like I needed to go to school to that. Honestly, like compression and exciters, mastering, those processes were really far away from me whenever I first started at the ACM, and getting that education definitely cleared it all up for me and helped me bridge that gap like you're talking about. It took me 4 years to bridge that gap. I couldn't get mono stuff to work whenever I first approached it, mainly because I wasn't asking for help from the community, and I was trying to do it myself because I thought, you know, you're in college, you can figure it out. Nope, you're not a programmer, you can't figure it out. Yeah. But it takes a lot of effort to merge those cognitive processes. Yeah. I don't know why I really wanted to so bad. I really like acoustic electronic, like taking, like we were saying earlier, what I said was so fun to me is just taking real sounds and making them into almost like an electronic style drum thing. Yeah. And that acoustic electric, taking acoustic instruments and maybe not turning them into drums or anything like that, but maybe just like really affecting them super weird. I love that sort of stuff. But when you're like, that's a guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Cause, and I'm kind of more on the creative side of it, to where like I know sort of concepts and ideas and emotions and how to kind of like approach them in a creative way. But like once stuff gets too technical, my brain starts just like checking out. Like, and
I feel like I have a good grasp of the technical side. I don't necessarily address it very often, mainly because some people won't. There's a lot of terminology that happens, and sometimes there's a communication gap. And if you keep it a little bit more broad and simple when discussing things like, I don't know, how you want the vocals to sit in a mix.
Yeah.
If you don't get like super specific with it and you just kind of let this technical person who is adjusting the vocals, take his approach to it, it can yield better results because you're letting someone go through the processes that they know versus expressing a super technical thing that you want. And this actually comes from experience in the studio where I'm like, I really want to hook up my mono and do these things. And the engineer I'm working with is like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I want to hook up my mono so I can reverse all this stuff and I can bit crush all this stuff. He's like, well, let's just slow your roll and talk about the musical thing you want to accomplish. I'm like, okay, I want reversed bit crush guitar. He's like, there's a thing plugged in for that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we'll use that instead of taking 30 minutes, 45 minutes running a send, setting up my mono, making sure that it like sounds right. There's multiple ways that a technical person can accomplish something, and sometimes it can be more productive for you to let them do that.
Yeah.
Versus being let the musical side work for you, versus letting the technical side get in your way sometimes, and vice versa. Don't let the musical side get in your way because you're trying to accomplish something technical.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, I also have a lot of technical brain as well. I mean, music theory is something that like I've had a lot more like training on, and so like I can approach music theory in a very like technical mathematical point of view. Whether or not it actually accomplishes something is a different thing, because it's like, yeah, you can approach something from a very technical point of view, but if it's not yielding you any results, then it's not actually helping. And so
maybe take a simple approach and see if you get those results you yield, or maybe you take that simple approach, but it's not translating to like the recording, but maybe taking that simple approach, getting the idea down in the recording will help you accomplish your final result.
Yeah. There's something about like, so I kind of have two creative processes, and one we already mentioned is sort of like chiseling away at the statue, chiseling away at the marble that isn't the statue. But then there's the other side, which is just like, I know the building blocks of music, and I know the building blocks of writing, and I know the building blocks of this. So if I like run it through a process,
yes,
it will achieve a thing.
I've got these bricks, let me lay them down and see how they fall. Yeah, so like I do that a lot too. Like you'll take a sound and be like, cool, this is a cool sound, what if I like sequence it like this? And so it's just sort of, it's not coming together because it was in your head, it's coming together because piece by piece you're putting stuff together, literally.
Yeah.
Like usually in the DAW.
Yeah.
And that can yield totally different results. But I feel like after you've piece by piece slapped something together, it still needs some magic, some smoothness on top.
Together,
right.
Yeah.
Vocals, something natural to make it feel not chopped up.
Yeah.
Because that's how that sort of music can feel. Unless it's like dubstep and it's supposed to be chopped up.
Right, yeah. Well, the other part is that like, so in my master's, I like had a piece where I was like, what if 12-tone serialism, but not with notes, but actually completely unpitched and with sounds and time.
Oh, interesting. Taking the pattern and then randomizing pitch and time.
Yeah, well, serializing pitch and time. Or not pitch, but time and sound. And that's what the piece ended up being called, was time and sound, because the first movement serialized, like I took a set. And sorry for those of you that don't know, set theory, it's advanced.
I don't know set theory.
It's fine. I took a set, and like each number in the set. A set is so in set theory, and the musical scale that we use has 12 notes in it. So in serialism, you take all those 12 tones and you pick an order, one of the many orders that you can permutate in it, and then you can transpose it, you can reverse it, you can invert it. And so like, if we're going from 0 to 2, which would be like going up 2 half steps, we can invert it and go from 0 to 10.
So I do this like every single time I make a lo-fi hip hop track in fifths, but I just didn't know it had a name. So
yeah.
set theory.
Sure. Well, kind of. Well,
serializing set theory.
Yeah, well, serialism involves like all of the notes in a set or all of the numbers in a set. This is just math now.
Sure. So you take a scale.
Yeah.
And then you can pitch it up like a fifth and it still sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can reverse it, or you can...
The monome's really good at that.
Yeah.
Because you record into a buffer, you have your scale, and then you can... Yeah. And then the buffer works for you. You can reverse that buffer. It works like tape, and it also works like a drum rack with pitch and filtering and stuff. So, yeah, I do that in like every single track and did not know it had a theoretical name.
Right. Well, and then there's... So the thing is that when people do that in serialism, it's usually with pitches. Right. And so it's like, oh, we have this set of notes and this is the order that they go in. And every time that all 12 of those notes are played, then we will restart that sequence. And like, yeah. And that's the serialism part of it, the order. And so I did that with like the numbers mean different things now. Instead of pitches, they mean a length of time. Okay. And so 1 equals 1/16th note and 8 equals 8/16th notes. Cool. And so...
Real short stuff.
Yeah, I had a set of numbers.
Do they carry over each other?
And each one, like, because of the different ways that you can permute the set, it would generate different rhythms.
Okay. Do they carry over each other, or are they gating each other?
Well, they were just setting the time. And so like, because it went, let's say like 1, 7, 2, 5, 3, then it would be like a short note, a long note, a short note, a long. So like that would sort of, it would total out to be the same amount of time because the entire set would add up to like.
But are your notes choking each other, or is your half note and...
Well, they would go after each other.
Okay, so they're not. They're in order, and you're permutating your rhythm, and changing the rhythm is changing the composition. You could like carry over bars, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And that was really difficult for humans to play. They did it. Those percussionists did it.
Counting like
really
crazy.
Well. And I had like... Each hand was playing a different instrument.
Polyrhythms.
And so they had like a staff. They had 2 staves that they were looking at. Yeah, one hand was doing one rhythm, the other hand was doing the other rhythm, and they freaking did it. Percussionists are time wizards. And then the second movement was like with sounds. And so it's like now instead of doing durational sets,
the number chooses
which sounds happen. And so it's like this one was snare, this one was tom, this one was crash cymbal, this one was splash cymbal, stuff like that. And there were also like sets of rhythms, because if you just have the sounds, people just kind of like resting and like waiting for each other. And so I just had sets of rhythms, and so each number had like, 1 equals 4 quarter notes. And so whenever you get 1, you play 4 quarter notes on this instrument.
Right. On this sound.
Yeah. And so all of that is to say, like, it wasn't fun to listen to. I can like all of this explanation that I'm giving you is really interesting to like conceptualize and like, ooh, cool. How interesting to like apply numbers to different values and like permute it and see what happens. It's sort of like rolling dice and seeing what sort of things come out. And that's what makes like D&D interesting. That's in a way, whenever you're playing a video game, it's also kind of being a random number generator. But then once you like apply it to actual sound and music, it's not very musical at all.
It needs some, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It needs something on top to glue it. And honestly, that's all it needs. If you have this choppiness, if you have this randomness, all you need is like 4 on the floor.
Yeah.
And you're locked in. Yeah. You know, and that can, then those patterns have a base. And I'm not saying you should have put 4 on the floor. Obviously that was like a very cool like we were talking about earlier, like an acoustic electric experiment where you're like writing electronically and performing acoustically, which is very, very cool. I'm into that.
Right. But like that's why people are so like disillusioned with academic spaces, is because stuff gets so like up its own ass that
Yeah, I was gonna say in its own head, but sure, a little too meta. But
yeah,
up its
exactly.
own ass too. It can feel pompous in that
right.
situation.
If someone who just like, oh, I like Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo, and then they like walk into this concert hall, and there's just like these weird rhythms are happening with like percussionists like robotically playing this weird thing, and they're like, nope, I'm out.
Avant-garde enough?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I mean, like you were talking about like some of those people in the Lines forum are like, yeah, they're doing cool, weird, avant-garde, electroacoustic type performances.
Almost like noise, like not even like, is this music?
Yeah. And it's like, it's cool in your head.
Right. And then you look at the audience and you're like, oh, none of them are having a good time.
Yeah. Well,
they actually are, though. They're there to enjoy it. But
sure.
Even still, it's not like you're going to be like, woo, yeah, at the end. Yeah. Do another one. Okay, that was 30 minutes, but all right.
Yeah. And once you go like too far into the technical side, you like lose the heart that kind of...
You start to lose some of the honesty because it's all technical.
Yeah. And so it's interesting and it's neat. And the passion kind of comes from like creating it and conceptualizing it and like discussing it and putting it together. But the thing itself doesn't really have heart or passion in it.
And I feel like I've heard in some of your like, especially your recent streams and stuff too, you're using these experimental processes, but you're making them very digestible.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You found a way to make them a little bit more palatable just to the listener in general, while still using these really interesting approaches.
Yeah. It's also like, because it is a performance type brain, I'm trying to, instead of like, ooh, what would be an interesting idea? My brain is going, what will work here on the fly to just add to the sound and make it just keep going? And that's a different brain space too, because like you could just have like a full on like creative session, which does involve just like, boom, no, I don't like that sound. Ding. Maybe
going through the files.
Yeah, it's just like it's picking through the sounds and being like, all right, I like that. All right, let me try this thing.
That's 90% of a producer's life.
Right, exactly.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that to people, and I don't want to, like, it's not interesting to watch
exactly
for many people.
So you want to have something set up that will yield itself to build up and continue, that you can continue to work on in interesting ways that aren't just, this is the sound, here's where it's going to go.
Right. Last thing, what's something that you're playing, listening to, watching, reading that you want people to know about? Well, I guess I'll give my answer first, which is I'm still rocking Ben Levin. It is really good. Ben Levin's music and videos are very creatively inspiring. Him and Adam Neely recently did 2 albums, actually. They did 24-hour live streams, and they made albums in 24 hours. And like full composition, songwriting, production, recording
That's very
in 24
impressive.
hours.
All the way to mastering?
Not mastering.
Oh, okay.
But
I mean,
like,
still, it was ready for mastering, I'm sure. So.
Yeah. So it's like 35, 40-minute long albums with like, the lyrics are sometimes kind of nonsense sounding and the sounds are really strange or the performances aren't perfect, but like this is literally made in 24 hours. And like, it's one of the coolest and most inspiring things, because like what we were talking about earlier, like you can get in your own way and be like, oh, like I want it to come out perfect and stuff like that. And it was like, well, look at these guys. They're literally just
pumping it out.
Just cranking it out. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. It doesn't matter if like the greatest thing that you've ever done. It's just like, hey, let's make something cool and creative.
I've seen a couple YouTube videos similar to that. And, you know, they aren't all winners, but genuinely, like when they finish, at least one song is actually just great.
Yeah.
Like you're like, that's a jam.
Yeah.
And maybe the others is like, this techno trance song, not my jam, but the other one that you did, that came out really well.
Yeah. But yeah, Ben Levin's been my jam for a while and inspiring and all that stuff.
New things that are coming out. Well, Monum, since we've been talking about them, did just release a brand new 128 grid. It's really bright white LEDs that are variable brightness and really small, tiny aluminum case. And if I remember correctly, it's like less expensive than the previous grids. Well, it's still kind of expensive. I think it's like $500, but I mean, for the open sourceness of it all, if that's something you're into, then that's pretty awesome that it's cheaper than it used to be. I've thought about it. I've thought about getting it.
Can it output like different values per button?
Yes, it outputs different values per button. It's kind of like what it outputs, serial OSC. Like if you plug it into your computer and you hop on the forum and you open up like Max for Live. That's one of the programs that works with it very, very directly in a good user-friendly way. You'll pull up an object, serial OSC, make that object, and then it'll output basically just a matrix of numbers, 1, 1, 0, 1. It'll tell you whether it's on or off. The button is on or off. It'll tell you whether the LED is on or off, and then it'll give you the like position in the grid, which button was pressed. So it's once you like break it down, it outputs very simple stuff. It's just being able to educate yourself as to how you want to break it down, because you can do that in a lot of different places. And one of the easiest being Max for Live. One of the more difficult being like, I don't know, C++. You can do that if you want. And then the little sound computer that they've released for it speaks Lua, which is a coding language that I didn't know about at all until they said this is what this speaks. And looking at it and just trying to study it and talking to the community, I was able to learn like a little bit about it. And I was able to write some simple scripts, even though I suck at programming and I didn't know that you were just supposed to like grab lines of code and like copy and paste them over to your stuff. I was sitting there typing and I'm like, oh, this was supposed to be a lot shorter. And you can just talk to the community and they will teach you how to code for this little computer. Like it takes some weeks and weeks to like understand what you're doing, and there's tutorials that you follow, but it's pretty easy to learn how to code for these little things. If I could do it, it must be easy. So Mono, awesome company to support, and they've got some new stuff that just came out. I'm really, really proud of the two people that I used to be in a band with. Actually, I guess 3, because Linka was also in the Dulcets for a short period of time. And Linka and Jason Scott and Mallory Eagle have all just kind of taken off on their own. And I'm not bitter about it at all. I'm so proud. Mallory is doing fantastic things for the female community here in OKC and really doing a great job of collaborating with other female artists. And Jason, he's going out to like random bluegrass and country festivals, and he's getting all over the place now. And we were just playing weddings together, and he's like basically a star now. I'm so proud of them, all 3 of them. Of course, Linka is doing amazing things for the Latin community. She basically is like the queen in OKC right now. So very proud of all of them.
No, I mean, it's the same thing with like, we just talked about Don't Tell Dina, but like I used to play bass for Don't Tell Dina, and like the best thing that could have happened for Don't Tell Dina was me leaving the band. Because like they've just gotten so much better, and like everything that they're doing is like so much cooler.
And I'm sure it's benefited you as well, be able to do this podcast stuff and do all this awesome editing, and you've become very self-sufficient since then. So
I'm trying. But yeah, anything else that you want to plug or tell people to check out?
Go to the Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastards album release show on November 5th at the Tower Theater. Did I mention that?
Yeah.
Tight. I mentioned it again.
Well, now you just mentioned it again. So, I mean.
And of course, stream the album when it releases. And McNug will be releasing as an artist very soon. So keep an eye out for McNug if you like lo-fi hip-hop.
Cool. Well, Chris, thank you so much for doing this with me. Where can we find you and your thing?
Thank you, Santiago. Really, me and my things don't exist. My personal stuff, I don't have any of those acoustic solo recordings or the lo-fi hip-hop stuff. It's not out yet, but it will very soon be out, and it will be on SoundCloud under McNug, MCNUG, and Johnny Manchild and the Poor Bastards at manchild.band. We have an awesome merch shop that's going to get updated pretty soon once we have this new line of merch coming up around the album release. So keep an eye out for new merch at manchild.band, and please go support your local artists.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm Santiago Ramones.
I'm Chris Lashley. I love you.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music and produce audio. I have an EP, a short album, that is streaming everywhere right now. It's called Soundbites. The music you're hearing right now is from Soundbites. Listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere else you stream music, or buy it on Bandcamp, because a single purchase is the monetary equivalent of streaming it all day, every day, for a year. I'm also working on another album, so if you'd like to hear that at some point, you can buy my music, or you can support me on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Santiago Ramones. Follow me on Instagram to stay up to date with all the stuff that I'm doing, both at bit.depth and at Santiago Ramones Music. There's also a Discord server in which we discuss deep topics from the podcast, but it's also a community of beautiful human beings. Go to santiagoramones.com/Discord to join. If you like the podcast, leave comments on social media, leave reviews by saying how much you like the podcast, and tell your friends about it. I really couldn't be doing this without you, and I am so very grateful to continue doing Bit Depth for this long. Thank you so much for listening to and supporting Bit Depth. I always end the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Love never fails. It's going to be okay. I might be wrong.